Can I have Grant come up and please do a little reading on steps 4 and 5?
Hey guys, I'm Grant. I'm an alcoholic. Steps 4 and 5. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, for we look on them as sick people. We have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are now convinced that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from Him. If you have already made a decision in the inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. That was chapter 5, How It Works, pages 70 to 71. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have a written inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. All right, and please help me welcome our speaker on steps 4 and 5, Alan F.
Hey everyone, my name's Alan. I'm an alcoholic. And wow, I was sitting in the back just before, looking at the back of everyone's head. Guess this is what they mean by an entirely different angle. So I'd like to really thank Brad and Ted and the guys who are on the committee for putting this thing together. I know that there's a lot of work. Like we put a couple of things on in the last couple of years. There's a lot of work, and very often it falls on a few hands, and in the end, people come to pitch in and get this thing done. And these are like really great opportunities to hear a message and to give a message and to meet people, you know, in the fellowship. So I'm grateful to be here and grateful for everyone involved. I was thinking about how I was going to start with this. And let's start here. When I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I got here, but I got here in December 13th, 2013 was my sobriety date. It was a Friday the 13th, and when I got here, if the first meeting I went to, I heard something like, your problem is you're selfish and self-centered. I would ask, where's the room for the alcoholics? Okay, because I heard one of the other speakers share this, I pictured myself as being, well, actually the virtuous actor, because I thought that was a good thing, but I pictured myself as being kind, considerate, generous, particularly in relationships, okay? I didn't know that what I was really doing was being manipulative and controlling, and that I wanted something, you know, there's always something I wanted in return for my kindness and my generosity, but I just saw myself as being, generous, not self-centered, okay? And so it would be really difficult for me to find that peace when I walk into Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think one of the brilliance of the way the book was written, and some people like to say it was divinely inspired, I like to say at the very least it was brilliantly, geniusly inspired, because in the beginning it tells me exactly like the things that I need to hear. We're talking about alcohol. Like I know I got here because I have problems in my life. Actually, if you would have talked about consequences first, I probably would have related to, but it was really the alcohol. I knew I had a problem. And I really didn't know what it meant to be an alcoholic until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, I went through my whole life. I came into AA at 54, okay, years old, okay? If you would have asked me, what is an alcoholic, I would have said it's someone who sleeps on a park bench and eats out of dumpsters and has an unkempt beard with snot in it, like aqualung, you know. Like that was my vision of what it meant to be an alcoholic, and for very much of my my alcoholic, I hate saying career, but my alcoholic days, I was making a good living. I worked on Wall Street for 16 years. I was a hedge fund guy, I was a trader. Clearly I can't be an alcoholic because I'm making money. And I'm putting a suit on every day, and I'm going to work, and I'm being responsible. But I'm coming home and I'm drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels and drinking a 6-pack so I can go to sleep. So there's no way I could be an alcoholic. Like, and the thoughts that I had, you know, that went along with that is, I just like to party. You know, I like to party a lot, right? I'm really good at this partying thing. Yeah, you laugh. When I tell my story, I talk about when I went on a business dinner one time, because I didn't really believe until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous that I lost control of my drinking once I started drinking. And I tell the story about being at a dinner with these business people, and they're salespeople trying to court me, so I really don't care. Like, I don't have to make any kind of good image on them, right? Like, it's about them making a good image of me. And they're paying the bill and they're buying the booze, right? So I'm drinking, and I drink to the point where, like, I get that cold, wet sweat, and I'm pale, and I have my extremities are like tingling, and it's like borderline alcohol poisoning. And I get up, I excuse myself, and I get up and I go to the restroom, and I puke my guts up, wash my face, pull my tie up, throw my jacket back on, stumble back out to the table, sit down and order a double, right? And the thought that went along with that is, I'm really good at this. Like, most people would be flat on their back, and I really, you know, I can really drink. So by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, like I said, I didn't even know what it meant to be an alcoholic, and they break it down really simply, and every speaker that came before me today and last night talked about it, right? And this is supposed to be the easy part, by the way. When I pick up that first drink, do I know what's going to happen after, right? Can I control my drinking after I take that first drink? And so when I was going through the doctor's opinion with my sponsor, and he said, he asked me if I thought I can control my drinking once I picked up the first drink. I said, well, I never tried to control my drinking. Like, if I'm going to drink, I'm getting drunk, I'm getting wasted. Like, there was never a plan for, like, we're going to have 2 cocktails, or like what pairs well with, you know, with the roast beef we had downstairs. Like that's not my thought process going in. My thought process going in is, I'm going in, pardon me, and I don't like to swear at meetings, but like, I'm going in to get fucked up. Okay? Like, that is the plan. And like, I was fortunate because my sponsor said to me, he goes, okay, can you think of any times when you got more drunk, you know, and sloppy than you should have for a given situation? Then I started thinking of my younger sister's wedding. And I started thinking of my older sister's wedding. And I started thinking about those business dinners. And then I started thinking about my second wife, to be ex then, who didn't want me drinking. And I thought I can just get away with having 3 drinks at a restaurant. Now, to me, a drink is a double. And we don't put anything in it, no ice, nothing, okay? It's gotta be, you know, if it's 80 proof, it's going down 80 proof. We're not diluting that at all. And I'm thinking, like, I can just have 3 drinks, and she not to be mad. And in the course of a dinner, right, those 3 drinks turn into drinking straight through the meal. Okay. And at the end of the meal, when I say, would you like dessert? Because I'll give you the opportunity to get some more drinks. She looks at me, she goes like this, right? She wants the car keys, so she's driving home, because she ain't letting me drive home, right? And then she goes and sleeps in another bedroom, right? To which my alcoholic thinking says, you know what, the next house I get is not going to have an extra bedroom. You don't want to sleep in the same bed? You're going to sleep on the floor. Okay? And that's my alcoholic thinking. So I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and the sponsor says to me, he's got a copy of the big book sitting on the table. The first meeting I have with him, he looks at the book, he touches it, like he's like Buddha or something, right? He touches the book and he goes, you're going to find in here everything you were looking for in drugs and alcohol. Now, right, like good alcoholics, you want to shake that out and see what he's got hidden there, right? But it was nothing, and the fact of the matter is, that set me out like on this quest, like what was I looking for? See, I started drinking when I was 15, drinking and getting high when I was 15 years old, and I had a whole lot of consequences along the way. I had a whole lot of successes and a whole lot of failures, and my mind only remembers the successes. You know, I dropped out of college, got arrested, went back to college. Did better than the first time, a lot better. Went to graduate business school, got a job on Wall Street. That's what I remember. Okay, I'm not really remembering the fact that like I lost that job and that career because I just stopped coming to work. Like I can't go in the condition I'm going, and I'm not going to do it at work, so I don't go, right? I have no idea what the truth of my life is. I have a story. Everything I know about myself coming into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is a story. Most of them, I've been wrong. Hell, I was born into the wrong family because my family didn't have any money. I was born in the wrong neighborhood because there was a bunch of thugs in my neighborhood. And I went to the wrong colleges, and when I finally did get that good job, I went to work at the wrong company. I could tell you a little bit about that. So there was a Ponzi scheme going on at the company. I self-willed my way into working at it, but because I needed to have a job trading, I couldn't have a job doing something else at a reputable firm that I went to. So anyway, so I survived that in my career, survived that. But I have a story, right? My first wife, our marriage looked like a bad episode of Intervention, okay? We lied to each other, we stole from each other, I mean, it was bad, okay? And my story is, if she would have quit doing that cocaine, I would have stopped drinking. And if she didn't start doing heroin, I wouldn't have started doing heroin. And I've got stories about everything, and I believe that. They're all good stories, because generally, like, I'm the victim in all of them, and then I'm justified. And it makes a little sense, like, that I can continue drinking over it, because there's a little bit of plausibility that gives me a little bit of, like, it's okay to be doing what I'm doing, right? And my life is passing me by, and I have absolutely no clue. So in 2001, my father died. I got a phone call on Friday night. So I have two sisters, and my mom was calling the three of us. Your dad wants to see you. Two people showed up, and I wasn't one of them. A couple hours later, I got a phone call. Your father's dead. And I've heard people talk this morning and last night, and I know that everyone has a different level of what's going to get me to surrender, okay? And I totally agree with Sarah. I did not surrender. I never had the power to surrender. I was surrendered when I was finally surrendered, and that wasn't the moment back in March of 2001. I made a big mess for a couple of months. I went to treatment. I knew I had to fix something. My wife was still, back in New York doing heroin. I was at this treatment center. After 90 days, I realized it would be a toxic, really bad idea to go back to New York to my wife, and I filed for divorce without even letting her know. That comes into play later in my life when it was done exactly the same way to me, and I wrote it on my resentment list. Okay. So I followed I followed the treatment center's directions, right? And I go to meetings when I get out, right? And I go to lots of meetings. I make friends, right? Wanted nothing to do with the steps. First of all, they were hanging on the wall, right? Like, and you read them on the walls, it's sort of like, yeah, I got that. Like, I'm moral, right? Like, I grew up in a house with morals. I did. Okay, I didn't have them. I didn't practice them, as a result of this disease. But I know what they are, right? So I could check with that one off the list, right? So I had a sponsor, but never worked any steps. Didn't believe that I was powerless over anything. I'm pretty smart. I went to an Ivy League business school, but so I'm not smart. So if you give me the right information, I'll do the right thing with it. And like you guys aren't as smart as me, right? Most of those people are sober, right? Like long after I picked up again. But I'm sitting there judging my way out of a 12-step program. And but what did happen after my divorce was, well, I acted out a bunch, and then I met a woman who had two kids, and well, she appeared to be my next wife, my future wife, and got that one, okay, with a whole lot of self-will. I became an instant dad. And I was living in this place, and one of the speakers today referred to it under a different term, but untreated alcoholism. I was living deep in the spiritual malady, and I had no clue, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And I was not using or drinking, and look at me, I could hold my head up high, okay? But I was full of self-centered fear, which caused me to manage that relationship. And like I said, I was the virtuous actor, so I was, trying to be cunning about my manipulation, which is a form of control, which, let's call it what it is, it's abuse, emotional abuse, right? If you would have asked me, I was a really good husband. You know why? Because I made good money. And my story of what it meant to be a good husband was to be a good provider. Because that was the story that I got growing up, right? And that was my truth. And I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I have a whole bunch of things like that. In fact, everything I think I know about myself, I'm starting to sound like the prayer now, right? Like at that point, were lies and exaggerations and just twists on what could be close to the truth. And I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and tell myself, we go through the steps. And actually, like really, in the doctor's opinion, they kind of allude to it. They say, like, we couldn't differentiate the true from the false. They're not just talking about alcohol. They're talking about my whole life, right? I don't know that till I do an inventory, okay? But it's there. The message is there in the Roman numeral pages, okay? And it tells me, right, restless, irritable discontent, okay? But you took my medicine away from me. This is what you get. I was actually like proud of being like an asshole when I was in untreated alcoholism. I was like, but I'm using, not drinking. This is what you get. Like this is what's left over after. And I had no conception. I had no conception of what a complete psychic change, spiritual awakening, spiritual experience. I had no conception at all what that was, what it could do, if my life could be changed. This was who I am. Live with it, right? Like that was my story. And I was sort of proud of it. I mean, I had achievements in my life, right? I had a lot of failures, and I forgot about those, but I had achievements in my life, right? And so I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and we go through that big thing with the controlling the drinking, and I finally say, yeah, you're right. Like that does describe me. And the thing about the obsession of the mind, about like not being able to stay stopped. Once I'm stopped, well, that was easy because, like, at the end of my 2-year relapse run, I checked myself in. I wasn't prompted by anyone to detox. I went through a 6-day detox program because my mother was dying, my wife was leaving me, my business was failing, and I knew I was in trouble, and I had to do something. And I go into this detox over Thanksgiving. And I didn't ask my wife, what she thought of the idea. So. And we were having Thanksgiving with her family, so I left her to tell her family where I was, make up a lie. And I knew by the time I come home, I was in trouble. So I didn't make it home sober. Right? Detox. Completely out of my system. Didn't make it home sober. And I believe that was the day that Alcoholics Anonymous was born in me. Okay? Because the first thing, the only thing I said to myself was, oh my God, there's no way out. I didn't even know the language of AA at that point. Like, I'm powerless. Okay? I just knew there was no way out, and I was in trouble. And my mother was dying. And I couldn't show up as a son. Just backtrack a little bit. My mom had a surgery. It was a hernia surgery. Right? Not brain surgery, not heart surgery. She had a hernia surgery. And 2 days after the surgery, she bled out to her belly in the middle of the night, ended up with brain damage, which led to dementia, which led to her death. It's a 3-year process. It was horrible. I have my wife is threatening to leave me, my mother is dying, okay? My business is failing, right? And I make it about me. I lost my mom. I'm not dead yet, right? I can't even show up. I show up at I couldn't barely show up sober. So when I did check myself in, what does it say in Alcoholics Anonymous book? It says, it's like this baffling feature of alcohol, the utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great necessity or the wish. I had a lot of great necessity. I was serious. I had a lot of great wish. Okay, and I couldn't stay sober. You know, I checked myself into a treatment center. While I was there, my mother died. While I was there, my wife filed for divorce. I got served as soon as I got out. And while I was there, I lost a whole bunch of clients. See, I manage money, right? And like, clients don't like hearing he's in rehab. And that's when I started talking to God. And I started praying. And the deal I made with God after my mother passed away, the day after, I made a deal with God. And the deal was this. And it wasn't keep me sober, God. It was, I'll do anything to not be that person. Because the bar that I could no longer get under was this bar of, I had hurt everybody that loved and cared about me, and I never gave it a second thought until I ended up in rehab for the second time. I had enough clarity to say, like, oh my God, what have I done? And I just didn't want to be that person. And I had a spiritual experience because I had this overwhelming feeling that things would be better, that things were going to be okay. Like, overwhelming, right? And maybe, like, my ego shut down for like a half of a second, enough for the grace to, you know, to find its way through, but that's what happened. And so, like, I knew that if I knew it in order for that to happen, I had to, like, do something very different, which meant follow directions. So, come out, go to AA, I get a sponsor, tells me this, we start doing the work, right? I believe in God. God, am I willing to believe that there's a power greater than myself? Yeah, I am. I don't really think it could do anything for me, but yeah, I mean, that part is kind of easy. We get to the third step, and I love the book, and I really love the book, right? First, we had to be convinced. Nah. Okay, there's no way in the world I'm convinced on page 60, the first time through, okay, that I'm the problem. You know, it says when our motives are good. I can tell you all the time my motives are good, and I'll debate that point. My sponsor said to me, just let it go. Just read, look, we're going to go through this, just agree to do the work. Okay, and what the third step meant to me the very first time I went through the third step is not anything like it means to me today. Okay, but what it meant to me at that point was just I'm making a decision when I said that prayer, made a decision to continue doing the work. Next, we launched our course of vigorous action. And let me tell you how many meetings I've been to where that's the deepest share that people give. Let me tell you, I have more resentments about meetings about resentments. Okay? How do you like this one? And I hope I'm not offending anyone. I'm not on my fourth step, but this is what I think. Okay. So what I did was, I was desperate, and I made that deal, and I was willing to do whatever. And like what my sponsor said to me is, this is a program of action. It's not a program of thinking. Your thinking it's brought you to 54 years old, you know, losing your second wife, 3 arrests, you know, we go down the list, okay? That's what my thinking did for me, okay? And none of my family members, you know, wanted to have anything to do with me anymore. That's what my thinking did, right? So we're going to do this inventory. Right? And we do this reading. And you know, like I started off by saying that, you know, like my whole life is a story, right? It's my perception and my perspective, okay? And I like, when I work with guys who are new, I like kind of breaking this down. We read this part, we break it down, but like I like breaking it down into stuff that's like easily like understandable, okay? We're looking for the truth of our life. What do you mean, the truth of our life? Like, you know, this is the truth of my life. Okay, and I like to share, you know, some things about my life, you know, that I thought were true. okay? The thing about my wife sleeping in another bedroom, okay, that ended up in my inventory. I resent my wife, ex-wife, because she would sleep in another bedroom. How'd that make me feel? Self-esteem, clearly, my pride, this wonderful guy. My sex life, no doubt, right? Pocketbook keeps coming, okay? And that's about as far as I get, right? That is as far as I get, okay? I resent my wife. By the way, I could do this all day because I had 33 of them. I resent my wife, okay, because she made me get rid of my guns, okay? Now, I'm originally a New Yorker, right? We can't get guns, okay? It is mandatory for someone like me to have a gun in New York, mandatory 1 year. I believe they haven't changed that at this point. Right, so, we get a gun, so we leave a gun. I'm in Pennsylvania, right? They're wearing it at Gold's Gym when they're working out. I'm like, like I get strapped too here, right? So I'm going out and I get, everyone needs a 9mm. Okay. Then I see this really cute .38 revolver with a laser, which would look great in my wife's pocketbook. Okay, and I bring it home, and she's looking at me like I got 3 heads. Okay, right? And then I'm hanging out with a buddy of mine who was an ex-NYPD worked in the gun shop, because that's what we do, right? And there's a 6-hour 45. It is a friggin' camp, okay? So I resent my wife because she wants me to get rid of the guns, and this is affecting me in all kinds of ways. Like, this is the story. This is the story of my life. Here's when I look at, where was I self-seeking, selfish, dishonest, and afraid? I seem to have forgotten an incident where, toward the end of the marriage, and she was really angry with me, and I was upstairs in the bedroom drinking tequila, and I decided at some point that, I really never fight that 6-hour. I just want to hear. I want to hear what it sounds like, No, I didn't do it upstairs, but close, right? So, loaded, come downstairs. My wife is in, so here's the kitchen, there's the family room, right? They're watching, they, being my wife and granddaughter, are watching some Disney thing or something, butterflies and hummingbirds, right? I walk by, I'm going right for the sliding glass door, right? To go out to the back deck. I go out with the gun on my side. Fire it. 2 rounds, into the ground. Damn thing echoes through the neighborhood. It was really good, right? And I'm drunk. And I walk back in the house with a smirk on my face, with the gun on my side, right? And the 2 of them are crying. See, they thought I went out there and blew my freaking head off. Right? But my story is I resent my wife for making me get rid of the guns. Okay? I'm not seeing my part in anything. Some of this stuff is really obvious, like that was. That one should have been really obvious. But then there's times where she would come to me and talk to me, and I'd go right away into fix-it mode, okay? I wasn't even listening to a word she was saying, right? She would leave, disgusted, and I was like, man from Mars, women from Venus, right? That's what we do, we fix things, right? Well, I broke the marriage, okay? I didn't fix anything. And these are stories that I have, right? And I live in this truth, you should really appreciate, because if it wasn't for me, the kids wouldn't be able to go to Disney, right? Look at all I've done for your kids. And this stuff stays bottled up inside of me until the divorce is, it's on, okay? It's gone. And then it all comes out. She's like, did you take them because you love them? Did you take them because you wanted a pat on the back? I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to life. When I wrote an inventory, okay, that 3rd step came to life. Here I am, the actor trying to run the show. I am actually, I can see it in black and white. Because the directions are very simply this, right? We want to see the truth of ourselves. And I'm only talking about the resentment inventory right now. It's fear and sex conduct, right? But when it comes to the resentments, okay, just self, being convinced that self manifested in various ways, what had defeated us. We're bringing this up again, right? The third step prayers, believe me, bondage of self. First, we had to be convinced that any life run on self-will. They're bringing the self thing up. They're not talking about vodka or tequila at this point, right? We're done. The bottles are a symbol. Like the disease is this selfish and self-centered nature where I see the whole world and I'm a victim when things go against me, and I think the world's coming at me when the world is coming from me. And all my perceptions and perspectives from the inside shade how I see everything on the outside, and then I act on this stuff, okay? And I don't like my boss at this great company I'm working for, so I leave. They were around 70 years before me. They're around 20 years after I left. And I still haven't gotten the email that they want me to come back and fix things there. And I go to this other place where they're really messed up, this place, right? And I'm trying to run this place now. Finally, I did the only wise thing a discontent alcoholic can do. I started my own business, right? Now I work for the worst boss I ever had in my entire life. But I got sober. And so going through this inventory process with the resentments, what I'm really looking for here is, and this, has anyone not done an inventory yet? Like, anyone new? I'm preaching to the choir here. The first 3 columns are like fun. Like, if you're not having fun in the first 3 columns, you're not an alcoholic, right? Right? This is how I've been wrong. It's everything I see is, you know what, you didn't agree with me. You always have to be right. I resent Steve because he always has to be right in a conversation, right? It affects my self-esteem. You're a smart guy, right? My ambition, I want him to, admit he's wrong just once. I have a whole story that goes along with this. And one of the most useful things I found with inventory is what some of you call the sick man prayer. And I would like to say, since I'm a person, the resentment man prayer. Okay? Because I'm the one I'm asking God to change. And when it says perhaps the person who wronged us is spiritually sick, I remind people like it says perhaps. Okay? Because I was quick to judge. And spiritually sick just means really running on self-will. And there's probably a spectrum from complete self-will to the Dalai Lama, whatever. And to say that prayer, because the book says we ask God to show me, right, not you, okay, or to show me how to have tolerance, patience, pity, empathy, whatever fits in there for you that I cheerfully grant to sick friends, or how I'd like you to treat me, okay. And then it says something really powerful. Right? This is a little hint. It comes out the book all over the place. It manages to stick this in. Okay? We ask how we can be helpful to them that we resent. Helpful, useful. Comes up a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. It took me a couple of times through the book to really get that message. And then it said we don't retaliate, right? We don't argue. I probably argued and retaliated, which is why I'm writing an inventory on it. And then it says, where were we? Self-seeking, selfish, dishonest, and afraid. And I look at and I don't even use the word my part. What did I do? And in many cases, I set the ball rolling, right? It could have been that thing with the gun. It could have been any one of a number of things. That's really minor in the scheme of what our 14-year relationship looked like. And she was a really good woman. She wasn't an alcoholic, She may have been an ACOA, but she wouldn't have, admitted to it, which is why she was probably attracted to me. And I look at my fears, right? I look at the dishonesty, so I believe that the third step, pages 60 to 62, is like a blueprint for the fourth step, right? It actually has all the answers, and all I have to do is personalize it, right? Weren't they, isn't Alan, a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only he managed well? I like to say if only managed better, if only I tried harder, right? Because that's what I'm doing, right? And that's the dishonesty that I have going on, right? It's like, if I'm a little more cunning in my manipulation. How about this one? If I used a little more money, right? Presidents, trips, things like that. Maybe she'll love me more, okay? That is the most dishonest thing. Even half of me knows that's ridiculously not right? Never worked, it's not gonna work, but these are the stories that I'm living. And like when I do this resentment inventory, like I start to see the truth in my life. And what happens is as I'm writing this stuff, more and more I start to see the patterns. Like I've been like that in every friggin' relationship I've ever been in. Actually, I've gotten a lot worse. I can see a progression in it, right? And what's it driven by? What fears are driving this? Fear of not being good enough. Fear of not being alone. Fear of not being lovable. Fear of not being worthy. They're all the same, okay? I walk into every situation, not good enough. And then with that fear, said it before, okay, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-pity, self-seeking, right? We stepped on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate, okay? I'm starting to look at me in this stuff. And I'm starting to see the truth of my life. Okay, and I gotta tell you something. It's not pretty when I did my first inventory. It really wasn't. And then we have this fear inventory. Okay, a lot of people stop at the resentment inventory because it seems to be a lot of fun, but we have this fear inventory, and I've been through inventories, like full inventories, like a number of times. Okay, with a number of different people. I believe in doing I believe it's like layers of an onion. What I was able to see when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous back in 2013 was my mother was dying. The hospital made a mistake. They killed her because she shouldn't have been back on the blood thinner 2 days after surgery. That my wife was leaving me, and she was, why would you leave someone like me? I mean, damn, like you got first choice, untreated alcoholism right here. Like, how much fun you gonna have, right? My sisters weren't talking to me because my mother was in home hospice and they had to make the decision when to give her the morphine, and I was in treatment. They wanted me to do it then. This is what my thinking got me. Okay. So I'm looking at my fears now, right? And throughout my resentment, like I'm coming up with all these fears, right? And I've got some, core fears. A lot of them just really look the same. You can boil them down to like if I'm fear of being judged, I don't have a fear like you guys are judging me positive, like that, right? I have a fear that you guys are judging me negative, right? So it all comes down to like the not being good enough, and and by the way, until I had some conception of a higher power that was unconditionally loving, not judgmental and not punishing and nurturing, I throw that in there. Okay, that changed everything for me, the way I looked at that. Because I would rely a whole lot less on people's affirmation and love for me to feel good about myself, right? As long as I believe that I'm doing the best job, and I fall short on a daily basis, but as long as I believe I'm doing the best job, I can, aligning my will with that of God's, okay? I know things are cool. And someone before, the speaker before said, was it Anthony? Richard Rohr wrote a book called Being Underwater, and he says in it, God doesn't love us, we don't recover so that God will forgive us and love us. He says, God forgives us and loves us so that we can recover. And that's a thought I keep with me all the time. So we get this fear inventory, right? Like this is like everyone wants to make up. I find the less that's written in the book, the more we have to make up stuff like to beef it up, because the book wanted me to figure out how to do this. Fear inventory is all of like one page of material on fear, and it's deep. It really is deep, right? Evil and corroding thread, the fabric of my existence is shot through. Okay. Ain't that the truth? Okay. The last line in that says should be classed with stealing. I always say, like, what do you think that means, right? That means that everything that I ever had a fear of and tried to manage, I ended up producing what I was afraid of getting. So when I was a young kid and I was afraid to ask him the popular girl out, and because of the fear, well, that I never ended in a relationship. I go to this fancy business school, and like the Goldman Sachs of the world would be on me because I'm just a schmuck from Brooklyn, right? Like I have a fear that they're going to look at me a certain way. I'm never going to get the job. But guess where I'm not working? I'm working at Goldman Sachs, because that's the way my mind works. When I try to manage the situation, when fear comes, let me tell you something. My instinct, and very often my first instinct right now is the same thing. God, go in the closet. I got some work to do. I go into management mode. And I have to step back, and this is where the 12 and 12, it says, whenever we're disturbed, I have to step back and say, you know what, Alan, you're disturbed in this intense stuff, and I gotta go to God, and I gotta ask God to remove that fear. But when we're looking at it from the 4th step, it says, it's very simple direction. It said, we considered up here. We listed them on paper. We asked ourselves why we have these fears. So I have a fear of not being good enough in all my relationships, and then I look at all the self that I inflicted in there. Well, sure, but I wasn't bringing God into the relationship. I was bringing Alan's will. Did that work? No. Okay, and then it tells me what to do about it down, 2/3 down the page, with a very simple prayer. Okay. We ask God to remove the fear and turn my attention to what He would have me be. Okay? And the way I look at that is going back to the 3rd step, where God's the principal, you're the agent. God's the employer, I'm the employee. He is the director, I'm the actor. I get screwed up on that one sometimes. You're laughing because you know, right? Okay, and I have to use these prayers, the resentment and the fear prayer, in my 10th step too. Like, this is what keeps the damage from piling up and accruing. I heard a lot of things when I was new in recovery. Some of them were really good. Okay, things like don't make more damage. Don't make more wreckage. Okay, boy, I couldn't live up to that one. Okay. I struggled in the first year. I tell everyone, everyone who's new, I tell them, my first year was really difficult. I cried for the whole first year. My mother died. My father died, I can't show up. Mom dies, I'm in a treatment center, right? Like, what kind of human being is this? Everyone, I'm telling you, everyone has a bar which they can't crawl under. And for me, that was the one. Like, I am worthless. I did not deserve to be in a room with you people, because you people are good, decent people. And I know in your hearts, every alcoholic I ever met are good, decent people. But me, no. Not for what I did. And the amends process, by the way, fixed that. And I do have a graveside amends, which I'm not going to share at this time, because that's not what I'm talking about. Sex conduct inventory, the way it was presented to me, was really like a relationship inventory. And I had been a serial relationship person from high school. And I went away to college, and I dropped out of college, and I went back to college, and I went to graduate school, and got married, got divorced, did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I got married, and and so like when I was in treatment, the therapist said to me, first time he met me, didn't know anything about me, just look at my chart, he goes, I think you may be a relationship addict. Right? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, right. That's not what I'm here for. Thank you. My therapist, who got better when I did my 4-step, said to me, you might be a relationship addict. I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sponsor goes through those 2.5 pages on conduct inventory. We're looking at the questions. There are 9 questions, if you consider it dishonest. Where I achieve unjustifiable, resentments, and you know how I do that now? I take my phone to the bathroom, and Lori gets pissed at, what are you doing with that phone, right? But she had some trauma in history in a relationship with that. I can cause bitterness, today, in some very simple ways. But when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had a lot of clearing out damage to do. A lot. And I wrote this inventory. And there's a question that my sponsor, essentially like our lineage uses, like a little form from that awakening. And the first question is like 2 pages. So the review of your conduct past is just like a narrative, whatever. And like on the first question is, why'd you get involved in the relationship? Okay. And let me tell you something. That could have been my entire inventory, and I would have changed. For real. Because I objectified women, okay? It was all about the physical, okay? And let me tell you something, this is, again, like we get up here, like I'm not saying this stuff in my fifth step, right? And then we get up here and it's like we say in church to like 100 people, you know? I objectified women, and then I treated them like possessions. And I grew up in a house with a mom, 2 sisters, and a dad that was at work all the time. I grew up in a female-dominated house where I was taught how to treat women, and I couldn't live up to any of it. And when I wrote that inventory, I actually stayed out of a relationship for 3 years, and it flowed directly from the work I did in inventory. Okay, no ifs, ands, or buts. Okay, and when I wrote like my sex ideal, okay, all right, I'm using terms that I didn't know existed, and I have no idea where they come from, but emotional intimacy, okay, like that then goes on my ideal. Okay, someone was either talking to me in my sleep, or this is like some automatic writing thing or something like that, because this was not in my vocabulary, right? Like this was not, you know, compatibility, common interests, you know, like things like that, right? And I did. I stayed out of relationships for a long time. And I'll tell you, inventory really did a lot. Inventory, by the way, in and of itself is not the solution. It is part of the solution. You know, it starts off by saying, you know, we've never done, you know, personal housekeeping, of which the first step is the personal housekeeping, right? We've never, like, done an inventory before. And take a look at ourselves. Like facing and be rid of the things that block me off, I gotta face them first, right? And I'm facing them when I put them on paper. And let me tell you something, there were some changes that flowed from that, okay? And a lot of it had to do with relationships. And a lot of it was really ugly. And like, I stayed out of, so y'all work this one. My wife, ex-wife, moved out when I was at a meeting. I got a text saying, just want to let you know, if you come home, there's a moving truck outside the house. So she was courteous about it. I didn't act out, okay? I didn't act out for 2 years. Like I didn't act out. I knew if I was with someone, I would be using them, I'd be creating more damage. This is stuff that came from inventory. This is not my sponsor telling me stuff that I think that you should. This is some great advice. The only advice my sponsor ever gave me was about the relationship stuff was when I was ready, like in 2.5 years, 4 years, and I said, I think it's about time I go out there and see it. I'm still alive. He said to me, he goes, just get to know this person. Become friends first. Don't jump into bed right away. Right? So give me all this advice. So my fiance, we've been together 8 years, right? So we didn't do anything physical for like 6 months. Okay. And now I talk to my sponsor. He's like, I never did that. So I do this inventory, right? And there are some like big chunks of me that I'm swallowing. Like when I look at this stuff, right? And like the fifth step, and I do have a lot of fifth step experiences. I heard a lot of fifth steps. Okay, I'll tell you, I get the fifth step promises more when I hear a fifth step these days than when I do a fifth step. The first time I did a fifth step, I'm going to tell you, and this is God's honest truth. I go in there, and the guy who was sponsoring me, he sponsored me for about 4 months, and then he moved to actually the Neptune area, Red Bank area, and then he moved back, because you can't leave. It's like Hotel California where we live, right? So I'm doing my fifth step, I'm choking up on it. I'm doing my fifth step, and he's sitting there quiet with his eyes shut. I'm either boring him to death. I have no idea what's going on, okay? And that's one school of thought is you listen to a fifth step, okay? When I was done with my fifth step, not only did I not feel the fifth step promises, I feel I owned every single thing that went wrong in my life, okay? And by the way, let me just add something here. I have to do this. This is the little asterisk because it's come up a couple of times, right? And it comes up a lot with my sponsors, right? If something happened to you when you're 6 years old, okay, you have zero part in that, okay? Zero, right? And unfortunately, it happens a lot more than I would have thought before, okay? Right? But what I do with that throughout my life and inability to have trust in a relationship or mistreat people as a result of it or be like living in fear or something like that. That's where, that's where the spiritual work can, begin. And I'm a big advocate of, therapeutic work that goes along with it. But getting back to the fifth step, and he said nothing, and at the very end, you're a garden variety alcoholic, and I felt so let down and so dismayed. Yeah, no, I did, because I felt I owned everything, and what I was really fortunate about was, he did say to me, the fourth step and the fifth step doesn't show you who you are, it shows you who you're not, right? Like, this is not who God, intended you to be, and these are things that, for whatever happened, like Bill talks about, worldly clamors that, blotted out, the consciousness of his higher power in Winchester Cathedral, and he brings the same thing up in We Agnostics. I did, my second sponsor, who I've had, basically continuously now for the last 10 plus years, we do a fifth step together. I do a fifth step with him. It's like an 8-hour, it's like, we're stopping to break and, there's a lot of feedback and there's a lot of, and like the thing that's really useful about it is like when I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, in some ways I feel like a freak. I feel totally unique, and even though maybe some of the things that you may not find are so like shocking, okay, to me they are, right? Like we all own our own shame, okay? And to have somebody, share with you, or like I was just talking with Paul before this, point them in the direction of someone who has similar experience. That's one of the things about how this wonderful, miraculous program actually works, is because I am not alone, and I am not unique. And when I sit across the table, when I work with sponsees, and I see the tears from somebody who I would think is like, some big, rough, tough guy or whatever, we all bleed the same, we all cry the same, and in many ways we all have the same fears, we all have the same, not good enough stuff. Well, let's talk about that, right? So like I find hearing a fifth step, okay, and doing a fifth step, it to be like an interactive, and that's just like my belief, that's how I do it with guys, and that's how, it was done the last couple, with me. Inventory, I'm going to close. I am going to close this. It's great. Not a lot. I'm going to share what inventory looks like today. Okay, which means I'm going to admit to some faults to you guys. Okay, that made me look bad compared to some of the things that were heard earlier. I sponsor a lot of guys. Okay. I have a guy. He was the longest. I sponsored him for the longest. I sponsored him for like 8 years. Okay. And I'm going to be very general about this. He was a train wreck with the relationship stuff, and I was his sponsor. And I was the virtuous sponsor for a while. Let's have a father and son talk, And it got to a point, and there was a lot of lying and deceiving on his part or whatever. And I started getting resentful. And he crossed one line, and that became the mean, egotistical guys. In the guise of, oh, my motives are good. I even talked to my sponsor about it. I said, my defects of character, are working to help people. Like, I'm trying to angle God here, right? And we have a little intervention with this guy. I get him to agree, before we didn't jump him, right? I said, are you willing to talk about this in front of a group of your peers, men, that come to our house? I don't think I asked him. I think I said, if you're not willing to, you might want to look for another sponsor. Because I just had it with this. And he did it. And then he went to this therapeutic program to deal with some of the stuff. And they changed sponsors. And I said, oh, good riddance, right? Okay. take one notch off my belt, right? Good riddance, okay? Because my ego's all is written through this, okay? I know he's doing an inventory. I'm gonna have to move fast. I know he's doing an inventory. I'm gonna be on. I'm on it, right? I'm gonna be on it. Say, look, I can't wait for him to make amends to me. And then I get to tell him the things that he left out, right? And I'm sitting with one of my sponsors, showing them how to do inventory. I said, look, let me show you how easy it is. And I did one on this guy in 5 minutes. And I said, oh shit. I gotta go make amends to this guy, right? Because you know what the truth of my inventory showed me? Not that he was hurting all these women and breaking up relationships and stuff. You're making me look bad. Okay, don't tell people I'm your sponsor if you're doing all that stuff. Okay? Yeah. Okay? Truth. Okay? And you know why I share that? Okay? Because if I'm not willing to be honest about this stuff, I'm not moving closer to God. This is me with all my defects. They have not been removed. Many of them have been shoved aside. But if I don't continue doing this work on a regular basis, I no longer say like I have to do something for my recovery every day. I have to do something for someone else's recovery every day. And as long as I'm consistent, I'll never be perfect, and these are the things that I need to do to stay sober, and I think I just hit the clock. So thank you all, and I really appreciate it.
All right, guys, we'll see you in 15 minutes.